Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Straight Talk with Wine Spectator. My name is Bruce Sanderson. I'm a senior editor, and I will be your host tonight. And I will be joined by my guest, Rocco Lombardo, president of Wilson Daniels. Let me just find Rocco here. Let's see, there we go. We started these conversations when the world shut down due to the coronavirus pandemic. We wanted to stay in touch with the wine community and also the restaurant community. So we've been chatting with winery owners, winemakers, retailers, importers, sommeliers, restaurateurs, folks from all aspects of the industry. And we wanted to find out how the pandemic was impacting their lives and their businesses. But we also wanted to talk about wine. So sit back, pour yourself a glass of wine. We're going to connect here with Rocco shortly. And next Tuesday at 7 p.m., you can join me. My guest will be Chris Adams, the CEO of Sherry Lehman, fine wine retailer in New York City. And on Thursday at 7 p.m., my colleague James Molesworth will be speaking with Andy Beckstoffer of Beckstoffer Vineyard in Napa Valley. And I see Rocco's there. Welcome, Rocco. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Bruce. It's great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Rocco has almost 3 decades of experience in the wine industry. He's held various leadership positions, including president of Frederick Wildman and Sons. And he was tapped for the role of president of Wilson Daniels in 2015. And he immediately set about restructuring the sales organization. And then he set up the wholly owned business, the distribution businesses in New York and New Jersey. And Wilson Daniels expanded its territory to Connecticut in the spring of 2018. And then they purchased the Galaxy Wine Company in Portland, Oregon in July of 2018. And under Rocco's leadership, they've expanded the sales force and also added a number of important family wineries to the portfolio. Thanks for joining me tonight, Rocco.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. It's great to see you.
Now, these are very unprecedented times for the wine business. In terms of value and volume, how has the pandemic affected Wilson Daniels' business?
Well, as you so kindly mentioned in the introduction, Wilson Daniels has experienced dynamic growth the past 5 years, and that growth continued into January and February of this year. But mid-March, with the outbreak of COVID-19 across the country and the shuttering of restaurants in many of the states, we saw a halt to that momentum. And in a given year, there's nearly 55% of our business is done on premise. So with that void created in the marketplace, we were forced to pivot to off premise. And as you have published today, and as has been published for the past 8 weeks during this COVID-19 outbreak, we've seen a dynamic surge in off-premise business, and Wilson Daniels has benefited from that as well. But we haven't been able to mitigate the entire loss of on-premise. You know, the restaurants are an important part of our business. They're some of our strongest relationships across the country. And it's very sad to see what's happened to those businesses over the past 8 weeks. And we're hoping that they're going to have the ability to recover in the future. We've got a great team across the country. As I said, we've enhanced our presence in off-premise distribution, and we've set forth with new initiatives with national accounts off-premise. So we have upcoming programs set to start in the summer of this year and into the fall, and the goal for us is to try to mitigate most of the losses in on-premise. It's going to be nearly impossible for a company of our size to mitigate all of those losses.
And I'm assuming that you're still making deliveries. How are your workers faring? I mean, are you delivering in states that are beginning to open up? And what are your thoughts on that?
So as you mentioned, when I came on board in 2015, we opened up our wholly owned distributors in New York and New Jersey in October of 2015, and then we followed in Connecticut in October of 2018, and we purchased the Galaxy Wine Company in July of 2018. Across the country, we work with a network of distributors, including RNDC, Young's, and Breakthrough. But within our own wholesalers, On the East Coast, we work with a third-party solution that handles all of our warehousing delivery. Our firsthand experience, I could tell you about our operation in Oregon, the Galaxy Wine Company. We do manage all of our warehousing and distribution. And there, we had to purchase all of the PPE. We had to make sure we assigned individual trucks to one driver. There was no rotation of trucks. We set up designations within the warehouse where warehouse employees would work in their own area. So we did have to put in place mitigating factors to make sure that we didn't have an outbreak. And in addition, we put in place hazard pay in mid-March to make sure those frontline workers are being properly compensated. So knock on wood, I'm happy to say that to date, we haven't had any issues. And I'm very thankful for our team across the country, and most importantly, our team in Oregon at Galaxy Wine Company for all their efforts in making sure that our warehousing and delivery systems are working well.
Well, it must be quite a challenge to do that quickly, but I'm glad to hear that everyone's safe and healthy. And let me ask you about your marquee French brands, Domaine de la Romanée-Conti and Domaine La Fleuve. Are you seeing some resistance to these high-end wines, or are collectors still snapping them up?
I mean, as you've published and others published, you're seeing growth across all price points today. And I can say today that we've had the 2017 vintage of Domaine de la Romanée-Conti offered and released to collectors across the country and to distributors, and our entire allocation that has been offered has been accepted. We have seen very few denials of allocations with our distributors across the country. Retailers will be receiving their allocations shortly. We have made sure that the allocations destined for restaurants across the country are going to be held aside for the fall so that they'll be able to take advantage of the allocation of the great 2017 vintage. But I can tell you, due to the intimate relationships that we have with collectors across the country, the feedback has been astonishing. Many collectors, through our conversations, have been depleting their cellars over the past 8 weeks. They're not out dining, unfortunately, or traveling. Just like us, we've been sheltering in place, and I can tell you my cellar has taken a hit, and that's what we've heard from collectors across the country.
Well, hopefully some of those wines we've been enjoying at least have brought a little brightness to our lives. And I know that when you released the Domaine La Fleuve 2017s, you really hustled to get them in before the tariffs came into effect. Are the tariffs still a factor, or are they being overshadowed by these pandemic issues?
Well, as you mentioned, we did hustle around the holiday season of this year due to a threat of a second wave of tariffs across the European Union. As a result, we had many of these wines here, including Domaine de la Romanée-Conti. The Domaine La Fleuve Puligny wines will not arrive until August. And they will be offered, the 2018 vintage will be offered in the fall. But I can tell you that with the cooperation and the joint ownership that we have with these brands across the U.S., with our winery partners and Wilson Daniels, we were able to marginalize nearly the entire price increase that would have happened due to the tariffs. So we received contributions from our winery partners in Europe and France specifically, and Wilson Daniels contributed as well. So the consumer really is not going to see any impact on the tariffs. We're fortunate enough that the dollar has been strong against the euro, and as a result, it's enabled us to go ahead and trim margins in a manageable way. But from the perspective of Wilson Daniels, we're fortunate that with our winery partners, we've been able to marginalize any price increases as a result of the tariffs.
I want to switch to Italy for a moment. You built up quite an Italian portfolio since you joined. I know you've added just before you joined Alvio Conio, and then since then Arnaldo Caprai, Romano del Forno, Val di Suga, and Montalcino icon Biondi Santi. Was Italy your focus when you took the reins?
When I came in 2015, less than 4% of our turnover was from Italy. And predominantly, most of our business was made up of products coming from France and the West Coast of the US. So for us, the progression into Italy and to continue our advances in Western Europe, I think was an easy next step. And as you mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to make great relationships with families across Italy. You know, taking a look at the Capri family, Marco was the first to join us in 2016, and then Bisol from Val di Biadene soonly joined us in 2017. And it continued with our advances in Tuscany and specifically Montalcino with both Biondi Santi and Val di Suga. So I've been very fortunate to complete the circle now, because my family, I'm first generation Italian American. My family originated from Sicily, and most recently we've added a producer from the province of Agrigento in Feudo Montoni. So we're very pleased to have them on board as well. But today, our portfolio from Italy now represents approximately 25% of our turnover. And I can tell you that we've got greater balance from Western Europe and the West Coast of the United States. And there's more to come. We're focused in both areas, and we're optimistic with the prospects for future collaborations from those areas.
Well, and I think if I counted correctly, you're in about 6 of the 20 Italian regions now. So obviously you feel pretty confident about the potential for growth of Italian wine and the demand for Italian wine in the U.S.
No, we are bullish on it. You know, it's challenging today because Italian wines are prevalent in restaurants. The comfort food that you get from Italian cuisine, along with Italian wines, go hand in hand, and we're looking forward to a new normal that will include restaurant activity. But when we take a look at our portfolio from Italy, we are going to be opportunistic. We're going to take a look at opportunities from north to south. I think the one area that we want to enhance is Piemonte. We've got the great producer of El Vioconio today that's representing the great Cruiser Rivera in the commune of Novello, and also making an amazing Preflox Barbera from La Mora. But I think there's other opportunities within other communes, you know, to take a look at Barolo, to take a look at Monforte, to take a look at Serralunga and others, just like we've done in Burgundy with great properties in Von Romane and Puligny Montrachet, and today the Macone with Le Fleuve. I think there's opportunity for us in Piemonte.
And you mentioned restaurants in that answer, and do you see the restaurant business coming back in the U.S.? You know, what do you see post pandemic? What does the on-premise landscape look like?
Now, Bruce, time heals all wounds, and I'm optimistic in the resiliency of America. I'm optimistic in the way we go about our business. Medicine is going to have to take part in it. I can tell you, I'm not in New York right now. About 4 weeks ago, I ventured down to Sarasota, so I'm in Sarasota today, but returning to New York next week. I think certain areas of the country have gone through a lot of trauma, and rightfully so, where the cases have been prevalent. And we've seen that in New York. We've seen that in New Jersey. We've seen that in Connecticut, 3 markets that we self-distribute. Those areas are going to need some healing. And I don't know the feasibility of restaurants working with 50% occupancy, especially when we know those profit margins are so slim. So along with government stimulus, which I think is going to be necessary, hopefully we're going to see restructuring of their costs with leases. Hopefully landlords are going to be flexible with restructuring leases, because small business and restaurants play a large part in employment in the U.S. We need them to have a healthy economy. And it's great to see the attention that they're now getting with these stimulus packages. But I really think that medicine and a vaccine is going to be necessary for us to get back to 100% occupancy in those great esoteric restaurants in New York, in Boston, in Chicago, and all over the country that we love being at. When you saw crowds of people, we really weren't imposed in any way with that. I'm hopeful that they will return, but I think it will be from the contribution of medicine as well.
Yes, certainly it's been extremely tough for the restaurant industry, and we all have a lot of friends in that sector of the business, and we certainly wish them well. Um, you had mentioned Bizol earlier as one of your suppliers, and I think that's what you have in your glass. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. We started working with Jean-Luc Bissot in 2017. The family dates back to 1542. We are very excited with the prospects of Prosecco Superiore, not just Prosecco. 40 years ago, we saw a movement in this country with Chianti, and then the progression to Chianti Classico, and then Chianti Classico Reserva. We feel the same thing is going to happen with Prosecco and Prosecco Superiore. These are wines that are hand harvested, that are on the foothills of the Dolomites. The Bissol family, as I mentioned, dates back to 1542 in Val di Biandere and the town of Santo Stefano. I'm drinking the Bissol Crede 2018 today. It is 100% from clay soil, so it has single terroir, very low RS, about 7.5 grams, and manageable alcohol in the Sarasota climate of 11.5% ABV. So it's great to see you, Bruce. I raise a glass to you and all my friends at the Wine Spectator. We appreciate the relationship, and I appreciate the discussion this evening. Salute.
Well, thank you, and salute. Thank you. Glad to hear you're safe, and good luck when you get back to New York. Thanks again for those of you who tuned in. My guest has been Rocco Lombardo, president of Wilson Daniels, the importer and distributor. And please join me next Tuesday, where I'll be chatting with Chris Adams, the CEO of Sherry Lehman, a retailer in New York. And then on Thursday, my colleague James Molesworth will be interviewing Andy Beckstoffer of Napa Valley in California. And for all the latest news on the pandemic, please go to winespectator.com. And if you're looking for wine reviews and other news, recipes, lots of information about wine, pick up the June 30th issue of Wine Spectator. It's out now. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and enjoy a good glass of wine. Thank you, Rocco.
Cheers, Bruce. Be well. Great seeing you.
Cheers. You too.